your favorite division, the AFC North, of course, all that grit out there.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think the Ravens, you asked the question offline. I think it's worth posing here. Are the Ravens the current version with Lamar Jackson, the modern day Andy Reid Eagles? And do you have a theory there?
I just feel like they're very, very good. They're consistently good, consistently competing um, for the conference championship every year. It seems like a lot of folks pick them almost yearly for the last several years to be the AFC representative in the Super Bowl, or to at least contend with the Chiefs, I should say. And it's just like they're always the bridesmaid, never the bride. And it feels a lot like the Andy Reid Eagles because they were very similar. Now they were just consistently losing in NFC Championship games while he was there. The Ravens haven't quite had that stretch, but as far as being, I don't, I talked about the Cowboys being like expertly above average. Like I feel like the Ravens are like a notch above that. Like they are so close to being one of those franchises, like having like, if it wasn't for Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, they may honestly be in the midst of some sort of a dynasty, truthfully,
They
if it
very well
wasn't
could be.
for Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. And so maybe it's not even like a discredit to the Ravens. It's more of just the teams they have to compete with currently. But just to be as good as they are and have not quite been able to get over the hump, is what made me draw that comparison.
Yeah, I mean, they're a well-run organization. I think you can argue that because they
Yeah.
do very well in the draft. They generally make good decisions in free agency and any types of trades that they do. I mean, they got incredible value for Lamar Jackson where they traded up to pick him with the last pick in the first round. When now, if you go back and do a redraft, he's probably number one, right? Or number two, depending on who else was in that draft. But my point is they do business very well and they've won Super Bowls. So it's not as if this franchise hasn't gotten over the hump in general. And this is not saying that Harbaugh is early Andy Reid. He's proven himself, in my opinion. But the team, as it's made up now, the last few years, does seem like they can't quite get over the hump. But as you said, the Chiefs are there. So it kind of, and I mean, for the Eagles, there were other teams that were there too that just seemed to keep beating them and beating them. But this division has the potential to be the best division in football again. I mean, that's not necessarily crazy, but you got the quarterback battle in Pittsburgh, which could be interesting because neither one of them looks good in preseason right now. We got Fields, who I feel like I don't think he has it, and you know how I feel about Russ. But Mike Tomlin hasn't had a losing season yet, so he somehow seems to figure it out every single year. And obviously, last year the Browns were really good. That defense was elite. They got to the playoffs with Joe Flacco. I almost said Joe Burrow, Joe Flacco. And if they get a healthy Watson this year, is it possible that they could continue to ascend? And of course, Joe Burrow is back. So the Bengals could be back in the mix the way that they were not last year. This is a division that could get three teams in if everything falls right. And, that's good for us.
Yeah, the one thing that the Ravens have going for them is they have the consistency of the quarterback in place that's been in place. Obviously, you mentioned the battle that's happening in Pittsburgh. You're hoping you get a healthy Deshaun Watson back in Cleveland, and then Burrow. Obviously, his injury history has been well documented, and having him on the field for a full season is critical to the Bengals' success. So, I think that the Ravens have a leg up coming into the season for sure. It'll be interesting to see out of those other three teams who can get things on track the fastest, and to kind of work the kinks out and get a few wins under their belt and get things moving in the right direction sooner than the rest. And I was thinking about Mike Tomlin and the Steelers earlier, and the conclusion I came to was this is exactly like the type of situation that Mike Tomlin probably loves. He's like, man, nobody thinks that we're going to be any good. And I think that he probably is one of those guys that thrives under being maybe the underdog, or undervalued. And so I'm like really hesitant to like be too critical of the Steelers because I feel like they could be, and I'm not a Russ guy, and I agree with you. I don't think Fields has it either.
I don't.
But and that's, I think, what's driving me even more to think like I will not be shocked if the Steelers find a way to pull a rabbit out of their hat. and have a good season.
10-7, right? With a combo
Right.
of an old Russell Wilson and a potentially below average Justin Fields. Like that just I mean, they went 8-8 one year with Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph. So
Right.
Mike Tomlin seems to be able to do quite a bit, but it's been harder, obviously, without Roethlisberger and without all that talent. But he seems to know what he's doing. The one thing I will say before we move on to the AFC South is Joe Burrow. If he gets hurt again this year, then I'm going to slap the injury prone label on him. I mean, you could probably give it to him now, but he has a lot of high highs. But Cleve the other day said he could be like Andrew Luck, where he's got
That's
immense
exactly
talent.
what just popped in my head. I'm like, freaking Andrew Luck, man. That's what it's going to be.
But I don't think he'll retire the way Andrew Luck retired. Now, to also be fair, the Colts did kind of run that guy into the ground with all their penny pinching on the offensive line. The Bengals haven't done that yet. Burrow seems to get hurt a lot, and we'll see what happens. But